which is hilarious. But Terry McLaurin, really the only disappointing player of the night fantasy wise that I expected to do at least decent. I had him as a sleeper, but I was tooting my own horn from the preseason about how he was a worrisome pick in drafts, and it's been a worrisome 2 weeks. Hopefully, he will get back on track in week 3. Tucker Kraft was my start of the game, and he performed the best out of everyone in Thursday night football. So that was good to see from Tucker Kraft. We are going to get into start, sit, sleepers, and busts, and then we are going to go through some daily fantasy targets, fades, maybe even build a lineup. And then we're going to go around the league and pretty much do a quick hit preview of every single game, a start that I like in that game, and a fade that I like in that game for fantasy wise. Players I want to start, players I want to fade in each game. And I'm going to show you the lines, the over under, and we'll get into all that and wrap it up with some questions from the listeners. And here we go. Let's get right into some start, sit, sleepers, and busts. Let's get into a question really quick. Dan says, Juwan or Hunter Henry? Dan, I would go with Hunter Henry this week. I would go with Hunter Henry. And let's get into some starts. Let's go into the start of the week. Dak Prescott for me. Last home start versus the Giants, he had 404 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He's had 2+ touchdowns in his last 3 starts for the Giants. The Giants were bad against the ground game last week. We saw Jacory, Krosky Merritt, or Bill tear them apart, scored a touchdown. I think the Cowboys play action should open up some deep shots to George Pickens. CeeDee Lamb is going to want to get back on track after he had some horrendous drops last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think Dak Prescott is in a prime position to perform very well in fantasy. I have him as a top 10 QB this week. He is my start of the week. I think you should fire him up. And some other guys I like at the quarterback position we'll get into in the sleepers. And then Drake May is another guy I like. I think that is why you start Derrick Henry, and then Hunter Henry. And then let's get into Devon Achane as my next start. Hopefully this offense gets back on track. Although I don't know if everyone saw they had a players only meeting this week. Not what you want to see if you're Mike McDaniel and that Dolphins coaching staff. Yeah, this Dolphins team looks like it could be a disaster this year, but Devon Achane was the only spark last week, and I think he's going to do well against the Patriots. I think he bounces back. He had a 90% first half snap rate last week, and the Dolphins had the lowest time of possession in the NFL last week, so hopefully that gets back on track for them. The more time of possession, the more opportunities for Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I like Devon Achane this week, and I think you should start him. I know if you're worried about this offense, you're going to be like, well, do I start someone else? I don't think so. I think Devon Achane is a top 10 running back, arguably a top 8 running back this week. And I think he's locked in your lineup whenever Tua's quarterback. He seems to do well. He kind of made that own play hit for the touchdown, even though Tua threw it to him on like 4th and 10 or 4th and 11 on the goal line. And yeah, let's go now into George Pickens. My next start, I'm expecting more targets and involvement for Pickens this week. He wasn't as involved as I would have liked last week. I think it had something to do with them not getting the run game going later on in the game. He had some deep targets. He drew some pass interference calls, but it is what it is. George Pickens, I mean, I think he gets back on track against the Giants. We see the Giants, they like to use one high safety, and George Pickens thrives in single high safeties. You can't really you gotta put a too high safety over the top of him, but when you have to worry about CeeDee Lamb underneath and the Giants will have to worry about CeeDee Lamb. I'm sure Dak will pepper Lamb with targets on that first drive when they come out, and then probably hit George Pickens on a couple deep targets on the first drive, see if we have any action off the play action. And I'm expecting him to bounce back this week. I think he's a solid flex play, solid wide receiver 3 play. He could be a wide receiver 2 this week. I think the Cowboys need to send a statement to the league that they are serious on the offensive side of the ball. They looked pretty good against Philly, except they just couldn't execute in crucial situations that had to do with CeeDee Lamb dropping some passes. Jake Ferguson dropped a touchdown pass. It was a tight window, but Dak got it in there. Dak looked very good. So hopefully the Cowboys offense does bounce back this week in the passing game. I know CeeDee Lamb is always a lock to get like 15 plus PPR points. I think he's another lock. He's probably going for 25 plus, but George Pickens, start him this week. And then at the tight end position, I had Tucker Kraft as my start. He was my start of the game tonight. He had an 18% route win rate among tight ends in week 1. That was second to Brock Bowers. So hopefully you are following on X and you found that information for Tucker Kraft to start him. I know some of my followers on X definitely did, and I saw some screenshots. So good for you starting Tucker Kraft. He was a lock for a top 10 tight end this week. I think I had him tight end 6, I believe, maybe tight end 7. I can't remember what I ranked him, but I'll have to check on that here in a bit so I can let you guys know what he was ranked. Give me 1 second and I will check that. Now, let's get in some other tight ends I like this week that I think you should start. I would start Harold Fannin Jr. is kind of a sleeper, but I like him this week. I think him and David Njoku are going to do really well. They played 12 personnel in 50% of their snaps. So that's good. That's good for Njoku and Harold Fannin. Now let's get into some listener questions really quick. They're flowing in. Give me a second, guys. I'll answer some of these. Pearsall or Johnston? Give me Pearsall. Waddle or Dobbins at the flex this week? Give me. That's tough. Give me Waddle. Give me Waddle in the flex this week. Bench 1, Collins, Ladd, Sutton, DK. Ooh, that's tough. I would say probably bench DK, Collins, Ladd, and Sutton. I think you go with those 3. Is the sophomore slump real? Are you talking about Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix? I don't know what sophomore you're talking about. Pearsall or Myers in the flex? Got JSN in London. Go Pearsall in the flex. Judy or Keon Coleman? Give me Jerry Judy. And then Tyrone Tracy or Olave. Give me Olave. Garrett Wilson or BTJ. Fire up BTJ. Pollard or Swift. Give me Tony Pollard just from a volume standpoint. ETN Kamara or HM pick 2. Give me ETN and HN. And thank you guys for sending in those questions. I'll get to is Terry done to Debo? Hey, Kyle, I did say I was worried about Terry McLaurin from the preseason because of the Debo Samuel addition, but I don't think he's necessarily done. The Packers like to funnel the underneath ball, and we saw that a lot tonight. I had Debo as a start. I had Terry as a sleeper, but I really should have put him as a bust. That was my only missed call tonight out of all the matchup analysis on X. Michael, yeah, you lost, bro. I don't know what you're saying. I just traded Zay Flowers and Njoku for Travis Kelce and Pickens. That's a good sell high on Zay Flowers, Michael. I like that. Yeah, Kyle, I don't know. I think Terry still has a way to go. Just he didn't get those reps early on in the preseason, and I think that's hurting him right now. That's what I was worried about. That's why I kind of stayed away. He could be a buy low right now. But yeah, Debo ate up a lot of targets tonight. DeAndre Swift and Devontae Smith for JSN. If you need a wide receiver, I'd pull the trigger on that. All right, guys, let's get into some sleepers. Actually, let's get into some sits really quick. Let's go into sits first. So the quarterback position, my sit is CJ Stroud. He's got no O-line to protect him. I still think Nico Collins does pretty well this week. I just don't trust CJ Stroud at the quarterback position to start him at my quarterback. Now, if you're in a super flex 2 QB league, it could be a different story, but I'm staying away from CJ Stroud this week. I know Michael Penix looked really well, but they pressured that Falcons team a lot, and I think they're going to do the same to Houston. So CJ Stroud is going to have to figure out how to counter it. I don't know if that's some quick passes to Nico or what, but they're going to have to figure something out to counter this Bucks team. And I'm just not comfortable starting CJ Stroud this week. He is a sit for me. And then at the running back position, Isaiah Pacheco is a sit for me. He wasn't as involved as I would have liked last week. This matchup worries me, and I just can't see myself starting him as an RB2, maybe a flex if I'm desperate, but I just think there could be better options out there. I know you probably took him with a decent high pick, like fifth, sixth round, maybe seventh round, which is the range that Pacheco is going, but it is what it is. Pacheco has not looked good in the first game, and I don't know if he gets it going here. The Eagles are going to get Jalen Carter back, and he's going to wreak havoc on this Chiefs run game, I think. Even though Javonte Williams looked good last week, that was without Jalen Carter. So you got to be cautious about starting Pacheco this week. He is a sit for me. And then Michael Pittman Jr., who looked great last week. I think I had him as a sitter, a bust, and that's a bad call on my part. I thought they were going to give the ball to Josh Downs, Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman was very involved in the red zone in 12 personnel with Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor. So I think, though, this week, Michael Pittman is a sit for me because I think he's going to get Pat Surtain. I don't see why they wouldn't put Pat Surtain on Michael Pittman. Pat Surtain Island is a real thing, and I think we saw Ridley last week. We saw this last season with multiple wide receiver ones. This is why Pat Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year. And I think he could be a lock to win Defensive Player of the Year this year if it's not for Micah Parsons and that Green Bay defense that has performed really well to start off the season. But Pat Surtain Island is a real thing. Please sit Michael Pittman Jr. I think he busts this week. He is a sit for me. And then Colston Loveland is a sit, but hold if you can. Not enough involvement as I would have liked, but I mean, you're not going to get a rookie like Tyler Warren or Harold Fannin Jr. I mean, those two were heavily involved, and Loveland just doesn't have that with the Chicago Bears offense. There's too many weapons around him. Romo Dunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Olamide Zaccheaus, like it's night and day. Like Colston Loveland isn't going to get the targets that Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin get because those two rookies are going to be heavily involved, I think, moving forward, as we saw in week one. But yeah, Loveland is a sit. I would rather start Harold Fannin over him. I would have rather started Tucker Kraft over him. I like Juwan Johnson over Colston Loveland. I like Brenton Strange over Colston Loveland this week. So be cautious if you have Colston Loveland. Maybe hold on to him if you can. If you cannot, definitely drop him for one of those tight ends I just named. Kyle, I think JCM is going to skyrocket. I think they're going to have to use him. He's going to be more involved in the pass game. I think you're going to see Chris Rodriguez more involved in the offense, especially in the pass game. But I think JCM is the clear goal line back in that Washington Commanders offense. Egbuka or T. Higgins, Leo, I would go T. Higgins. I think the Cincinnati offense makes a statement after last week's second half performance. You know what? JCM can catch the ball. They'll get him involved in passing situations, but he's no Austin Eckler, that's for sure. Kenneth Walker, Tyrone Tracy. Give me Kenneth Walker. Give me Kenneth Walker. All right. Let's get into some sleepers now. Jared Goff leads it off at the quarterback position. He gets back on track here at home in the dome inside. Chicago is still banged up in the secondary, possibly. It looks like Jalen Johnson might be back. Last two meetings against Chicago, Jared Goff had 336-yard passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was at Chicago. And then he had 221 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was versus Chicago, both meetings last season. And I think he gets back on track here. Ben Johnson, uh, first, I guess, reunion with his former team in Detroit. And it's going to be interesting to see if Chicago could pull off the upset. Do you guys think Chicago could pull off the upset? I'm not sure, but I think the Lions get the win here. I don't think the Bears can do this. I think the Lions get back on track. I think Dan Campbell is fired up and makes a statement here. Jared Goff looks good. Jahmyr Gibbs looks good. I think that they make a statement and the Lions get back on track here. So Jared Goff is one of my sleepers this week at the quarterback position. I think I might have him as a top 12 QB this week, just because of the injury to Brock Purdy. I don't believe I had Jordan Love. I think I had Jordan Love at QB 14, so he didn't make the top 12. I probably should have put him in there. He looked very good tonight. And then at the running back position, my sleeper is Travion Henderson out of the New England Patriots. Indy destroyed this Miami run defense. Vrabel mentioned they need to be more efficient in the run game. Well, who was more efficient in the run game, Ramondre Stevenson or Travion Henderson? It was clearly Travion Henderson. 5 carries, 27 yards, 6 targets, 6 catches for 24 yards. He only played 35% of the snaps, so expect the volume to ramp up in week 2 for Travion Henderson. I think he gets back on track here. And I guess 11.1 fantasy points in PPR leagues last week. That's pretty good for a guy who only saw 35% of the snaps. I think he could get to that 15, 20 plus PPR fantasy points this week. I really like Travion Henderson, and they could be playing from behind. I don't know. Miami could come out firing at home, and Travion needs to be efficient in the run game, like Vrabel said. Well, you got to put in the rookie that is going to make an impact. I think Travion is good to go this week. Keenan Allen is my sleeper wide receiver for the week. 10 targets in his return to the Chargers, 7 catches, 68 yards. He got a touchdown as well. Only played 62% of the snaps. So I'm curious to see if that volume ramps up a little bit. He will draw volume with defenses trying to stop Ladd, Quentin Johnston. They're going to be worried about those two first. Those two, Quentin Johnston hitting the big play for him twice last week. Ladd McConkey, always a PPR machine in the underneath mid-range game, and Justin Herbert loves Ladd McConkey. He loves all these receivers. And I think Las Vegas, we saw Quentin Johnston tear them apart last year. So Keenan Allen, I think he should do well this week. I think he's a solid flex play, wide receiver 3 play. And let's go to the tight end sleeper of the week. It is Harold Fannin Jr., who I have been talking about earlier. And he is the top 12 tight end for me this week. I might even have him in the top 10, I think. Let me pull my rankings up really quick just to check for you guys. Tight end rankings currently on the BA Sports Podcast website. I have wrong rankings page. I was about to say that does not make sense for this week. Tucker Kraft was my tight end 7. I have Harold Fannin Jr. as tight end 12. He could creep up, though. Dallas Goedert's my tight end 10, but he hasn't practiced, so I might move him down. He might be out, and I take him off my rankings entirely. So expect Harold Fannin Jr. to be a top 12 tight end this week. I think David Njoku could also be a top 12 tight end. 50% of the sets that the Cleveland ran last week against Cincinnati was 12 personnel. So he is the most popular tight end ad this week. Browns had him at a 72% snap rate in week 1. He had 3 snaps at fullback, 29 inline snaps, 16 snaps in the slot, 6 out wide, and then he had 1 snap in the wildcat. Is this like Taysom Hill 2.0? Now, he cannot throw as well as Taysom Hill, but I mean, he is kind of their gadget guy and joker guy in the tight end position for a team that likes to run the ball. They may get Quinshon Judkins back this week. Dylan Sampson looked very good, but I like Harold Fannin Jr., especially with Joe Flacco at quarterback. He loves to target the tight end, and Harold Fannin Jr. gaining a lot of separation. Another tight end sleeper that I mentioned earlier, Brenton Strange. He's a great streaming option if you're a guy who lost George Kittle and no one else is out there. And I think Brenton Strange is a fantastic streaming option against the Bengals. The Bengals last year were the team that gave up the most fantasy points to tight ends. So that is another sleeper. And then let's go into bust just after I answer some of these questions from you guys on TikTok. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to answer all of these really quick. Olave or Pearsall, Flowers for JSN, Willer, hammer that trade. I like Jason a lot. Olave or Pearsall, give me Pearsall. Hollywood or Tyreek, give me Tyreek. It's hard to sit Tyreek. Give him one last chance. Ridley or Pearsall, give me Pearsall this week. Mahomes or T-Law this week. You could go T-Law. I have Mahomes as one of the busts this week. I think he's not going to do well. He's outside of my top 12 quarterbacks this week. Hollywood or T-Mac. If T-Mac is Tedero McMillan, T-Mac, Jacoby Myers or Debo. Well, that doesn't make sense. Debo already played. I would have probably said I think I would have probably said Debo. He was a start for me tonight. Shakir or Devontae. Give me Devontae Smith. I really like Devontae Smith this week. Shakir or Booty. Give me Shakir. Booker or Devontae Smith. Give me Devontae Smith. I'm about to go into Baker Mayfield. I would sit Baker Mayfield, start Justin Fields, Balder, Tet, Debo, or Jacoby Myers all year. Give me Tet all year. I think he should get peppered with targets. Juwan Johnson or Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry. Bills, Bears, or Cowboys defense this week. Give me the Cowboys defense this week. Hollywood or James Conner in the flex. Give me James Conner in the flex. Hollywood or Judy. Give me Judy. Packers are set it and forget it. Yes, I think so. If you're regarding the defense, they get a lot of sacks, get a lot of fourth down stops. I don't think they forced a turnover tonight, but they had some chances. Booker or Devontae Smith, Sutton or Pearsall. Give me Sutton. Shakir or Austin. I don't know which Austin you're talking about. Hampton or Javante. Give me go Hampton. Pitzer and Joku. Give me. It depends on if Darnell Mooney plays. If Darnell Mooney plays, then I'd rather have Njoku. If Darnell Mooney does not play and Drake London does not play, give me Pitts all day. If one of Mooney or London are in, give me Pitts still. Pitts could be the second option if Drake London or Darnell Mooney miss this game. But if they're both healthy, give me Njoku. Warren or Kraft rest of season. Man, that's tough. I'm going to say Warren rest of season. No, you don't need two defenses in a 10-man league. You can stream. Should you drop Eckler? Marissa, I don't know yet. We're wait and see, but I think it's a torn Achilles, and if that's the case, you should drop him. But I don't know for sure. So definitely hold on to him until you hear a confirmation. Flex 2, Tet, Egbuka, Pickens. Give me that's tough. Give me Tet and Pickens. Shakir, Calvin Austin. Okay. Go Calvin Austin. I think he's a sneaky guy this week. Debo, yes, sir, Jake. Egbuka, Myers, Devontae Adams, Pearsall, Pickens, pick 2. Give me Devontae Adams and Egbuka. Actually, yeah, Devontae Adams and Egbuka. Egbuka and Pickens are like back to back. That's tough. Juwan Johnson or Pitts. Like I said, if Pitts has Mooney and London active, don't go Pitts. Go Juwan Johnson. But if one of them is inactive, go Pitts. ETN or Chase Brown. Chase Brown. There you go. I like Calvin Austin, Marissa, but I don't know. It depends on how deep your league is. He seems more of like a 12 to 14 team league. Ted over Pickens, Andy. Yeah, I'll take Ted over Pickens this week and probably all year. All right, guys, I'm going to get back into the busts. Baker Mayfield starting it off at the quarterback position. This Houston defense is no joke. This Houston defense gets a tough matchup against the Bucks offense, who was firing on all cylinders last week. But the Houston defense had a tough matchup in the Rams offense, and they shut down Devontae Adams. I think you're going to get Derek Stingley on Mike Evans, which should open up Ibuka a little bit. I think Bucky Irving is going to have to get going in the run game. Kyron Williams didn't really get going. He put up an average stat line, but maybe they can get some passing game going with Bucky Irving. Hopefully Ibuka gets going, but still worrisome for Baker Mayfield this week. This Houston defense will be prepared, and they shut down Matthew Stafford in that Rams offense last week. Even though they lost, they're favored in this game. So be cautious when starting Baker Mayfield. Depends on if you have any better options out there, but I would definitely be cautious. And another player on my bust list, so the bust, keep in mind, these are guys that are usually starts, and I'm projecting them to perform bad. And I'm not necessarily saying bench them, but I'm saying expect a bad performance coming. Alvin Kamara is next up on that list. Kamara did not look good in week 1. His targets are down. This is what worried me regarding the Kellen Moore offense. He doesn't like throwing to running backs. With a lack of running back targets, Kamara's PPR value is kind of in the tank. And he's a cheat code whenever he's used in that role in the passing game. He can go for 10 catches for 100 yards for all you care. Like, I love Alvin Kamara for that reason, but Kellen Moore just doesn't like to target the running backs. I don't know what it is, but San Francisco is going to try and take the key guy out of the game, and that is Alvin Kamara. We saw this last week in the run game against Seattle. They took Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet pretty much out of the game, and Jackson Smith and Jigba had a field day. Chris Olave could have a field day if that's the case, if they can pepper him with targets. This is going to be Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler. Brock Purdy is out, so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Alvin Kamara this week, although to let everyone know, I was not a huge fan of Alvin Kamara coming into the season because I was worried about these lack of targets coming Kamara's way in the passing game, which takes a knock on his PPR value, on his fantasy value. And Kellen Moore just doesn't like throwing to the running backs. I don't know what his deal is, but they got to get Alvin Kamara involved in the passing game. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, we saw him get involved in the passing game, help San Francisco last week. San Francisco knows that that's going to help New Orleans, and they're going to take that away. He is my bust at the running back position. My bust at the wide receiver position is Marvin Harrison Jr. Ever heard of J.C. Horn? It's like Pat Surtain Island, just the junior island. J.C. Horn locked up Brian Thomas Jr. Now, granted, Trevor Lawrence didn't really throw some good balls to Brian Thomas Jr., but J.C. Horn looked phenomenal last week, and I'm worried about Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the Cardinals are going to make it the Trey McBride show, and I think they try and get James Conner going as well. The Panthers' run game looked abysmal. Travis Etienne tore him apart. Definitely start James Conner, and then yeah, I worry about these targets. He had 6 targets last week for Marvin Harrison, and I think J.C. Horn locks it up, and you might see a bust performance out of Marvin Harrison Jr. At least that's what I'm projecting. At the tight end position, Mark Andrews is my bust of the week. 1 target in week 1, scored 1 touchdown though in each of the 2 meetings last year versus Cleveland. So that's something to hope for if you have to start Mark Andrews. If he doesn't score, I don't think he's going to be a top 10 tight end. I think it's just going to be tough going for Mark Andrews. So I would say my bust of the week is Marvin Harrison Jr. My start of the week is Dak Prescott. My sleeper of the week is Travion Henderson. And my sit of the week is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. going up against Pat Surtain Island. And that is a wrap on the start, sit, sleepers, and busts. Let's get into some daily fantasy look aheads. I'm liking a stack of the week quarterback wide receiver duo, Joe Burrow plus T. Higgins or Joe Burrow plus Jamar Chase. Heck, if you want to go both of them, I'm fine with that. Some cheap plays at each position. Running back, Travion Henderson, who I really like this week. Sleeper of the week. Wide receiver, Cedric Tillman. Looked good last week. We saw him in his breakout game last year was against the Ravens. So maybe Joe Flacco can unlock that again. And we see Cedric Tillman, like we did last year, break out against the Ravens. And then tight end, cheap play, Brenton Strange, who, like I said, Cincinnati, very bad against tight ends last year. and hopefully they can get that going with the Brenton Strange. We saw it in the first half. Brenton Strange and Trevor Lawrence looked phenomenal, and then we kind of had that delay a little bit, and they didn't really need to throw the ball in the second half. They had a comfortable lead on the Panthers, and I think we could see a Brenton Strange game this week. I think he could get into the end zone. Let's go into some listener questions really quick before I build a lineup on FanDuel. Guys, let's see what you got here. Okay, a lot of two for flex: Diggs, Ridley, Javonte, Hollywood, Devontae, D Swift, Travion. Let me go Travion, and then I will say, is that Devontae Smith or Devontae Adams? I would say either Devontae Smith or Devontae Adams. You're starting in the flex, and then Travion Henderson would be my other choice. But those two definitely for sure. Keenan, Pickens, Ridley, flex. Give me Pickens. Bucky plus Warren for London plus Hampton plus Ingram. If you really need wide receiver help, go for it. But I think Bucky and Warren are better than Hampton and Ingram, although London's one of my favorite wide receivers. Hey, Marissa, thoughts on Keon Coleman? I love him. He was one of my sleepers for the year. I had drafted him, I think, in one league, maybe two leagues. But I want to see how he does this week, and then maybe we can say he's actually breaking out this year. AJ Brown or ETN? Ooh. Go. I don't know. AJ Brown worries me. I don't know if he's healthy. Give me ETN. Yeah, you should be worried about Terry McLaurin. I was worried about him before the season even started. But tonight, I don't know, didn't really change my opinion on that. I was worried about I've been worried about him. I've been worried. I've been preaching about Terry McLaurin and how he worried me going into the draft. RJ Harvey or Chris Olave for flex. Give me Chris Olave. I think Olave gets peppered with targets. Baker or Rodgers at the quarterback position. The Jets didn't look great last week against Aaron Rodgers. Seahawks probably come out, play a little better. I'll go Baker and just hope to God that he plays well against that Houston defense. Mark Andrews or Tyler Warren? Tyler Warren. Oh. Warren or Henderson? If that's Tyler Warren, Tyler Warren. If it's Jalen Warren, go Henderson. Yeah, Jalen Warren, go Henderson. Mike Evans for ETN. If you need a running back, I'm good with that. I think we'll slowly start seeing Terry McLaurin get more involved. Bill should be a great running back too. They just need to give him more touches. Maybe that with Eckler out, that'll help him. Trevor Lawrence or Daniel Jones save you. Go Trevor Lawrence. Olave or Dobbins, go Olave. Would you start Jacoby Myers or Kenneth Walker or Chris Olave this week? Honestly, I'm starting Kenneth Walker this week in the only league I drafted him just because I think week 1 was kind of a injury issue. Yeah, you should play Bowers over Juwan if he's healthy. Traded Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison. Oh, wow. You may have been giving up too much. Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison, but I'm fine with selling on Marvin Harrison. I like Garrett Wilson, but CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 receiver. So I don't think that's too bad if you have depth. Juwan or Strange? Give me Brenton Strange this week. Steelers or Cowboys defense? Give me Steelers defense this week. They are actually, yeah, give me Steelers. It actually depends on if the Steelers have Joey Porter Jr. Cowboys are a little banged up, but the Cowboys have a better matchup. ETN or Kamara? Give me ETN. ETN or Kamara? Give me ETN. And then Jordan Mason or Tracy Jr. Give me Jordan Mason. Last thoughts on Scatterboo. I think Scatterboo could see an increase in touches this week if Tracy doesn't get off to a good start. So be on the lookout for that. I think he's a good stash play. If you have room on your bench, definitely try and stash Cam Scadaboo, but he's not a start for me this week. He's more of a stash. Ertz dropped 18. I know Ertz was one of my sleepers this week, Andrew. Um, yeah, great choice. I'm glad you made that pickup because I don't know if Goddard's playing. So good thing you got it in. Great pickup right there. Keon Coleman, Travis Myers, Dylan Sampson, Travis Hunter on my bench. I don't know what that means. All right, guys, let's get into some daily fantasy really quick. I'm gonna share my screen for people watching on the live. You can view it. Give me 1 second here. If you're not watching, I'm live on X right now, live on TikTok. Come drop your questions. We're going to go right into some daily fantasy lineups, and we're going to build the lineup really quick. All right. Quarterback position, Josh Allen leads it off. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Let's do the stack as I was saying with Joe Burrow, and let's do T. Higgins. Let's do T. Higgins. Here, I'll flip the camera for you guys on TikTok to see. I don't know if you guys can see that. Probably not. Go on X if you can. All right, let's do T. Higgins. And then let's go running back. Oh, gotcha, Born. Sorry, there's too many questions to keep up with who's asking who. I like Scadaboo more than Caleb Johnson. Wide receivers to start, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, Nakua, London, Pearsall, Igbuka, Jamo. Give me Nakua, London. Your team is deep. Holy cow. Nakua, London, Pearsall, Igbuka, Jamo. Nakua and London for sure. If London doesn't go, then I would go Pearsall and Igbuka. If London does go, I would go with Igbuka. Warren or Fannin, Tyler Warren for sure. Gordo, Tyler Warren for sure. Tyrone Tracy or Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan all day, every day, especially PPR. All right, let's go running backs really quick. Jahmyr Gibbs is looking spicy, but I'm not going to do that. Should we go to like the triple stack? Okay, Christian McCaffrey not being the number 1 running back on this is too valuable in my opinion. I think he's a go. And then let's fill it in with Travion Henderson. Let's see here. Travion Henderson, cheap play, saves us some money. And let's go to the wide receiver position. So right now, we've got Joe Burrow, Christian McCaffrey, Travion Henderson, and T. Higgins. Let's go with I like Brian Thomas Jr. this week, y'all. I do like Garrett Wilson as well. Give me Garrett Wilson. See if we can get a cheaper play. Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith might be the best value in DFS. 6,400. I like him a lot this week. BTJ, JSN, Moore, Keenan, start 3. If it's DJ Moore, I think it's BTJ, JSN, DJ Moore. I think you go those 3 easily. Juwan or Pitts. Raz, if Pitts has one of his wide receivers out, go Pitts, but I like Juwan. But if Darnell Mooney or London are out, I think you fire up Pitts. Pickens, Etienne, Devontae, or Pearsall. If that's how you spelled it, makes me think it's Devontae Smith. I'd go Devontae Smith, and then I'd go Etienne. If it's PPR. If it's PPR, go Etienne and Devontae Smith. All right, tight end position. I mean, Trey McBride. Let's see if we can afford him. A sleeper defense that you could target in DFS this week. Let's see. Probably the Cowboys, honestly. 3,400. That's a good price. How much money do we have left? We got about 6,600. That give us enough to afford DJ Moore. Chuba Hubbard could have a good week this week. He had a good week last week. Ricky Pearsall. Mac Jones could pepper Ricky Pearsall with targets this week. Thoughts on Zay Flowers? Eric, I think that's a good call. DeAndre Swift was one of my preseason players I liked, but ETN looked good. Justin Herbert, Cade, Justin Herbert, Justin Herbert, Justin Herbert. He's going to be a top 6 quarterback this week. Could be a top 5 quarterback. All right, let's see. Who do we want to fill this flex position with? I'd say if you're in some like crazy deep contests in daily fantasy and you want to get contrarian, fire up Kenneth Walker this week. Hollywood Igbuka Pearsall to start Igbuka. If you start one, if you start two, Igbuka and Pearsall. All right. Let's see here. Who do we want to go with? We might be able to save some money on tight end and go with someone else. Let's see here. What if we go with Tyler Warren? Has a bad matchup this week. I just think he's going to get peppered with targets. He should get fed targets. Let's go with Brenton Strange to save some money on tight end. And then let's see. We got, yep. All right, guys. What do you think? We got Joe Burrow at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey at running back, Travion Henderson at running back, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith in the wide receiver positions. Then we got Brenton Strange at tight end, Puka Nacua at flex in the Cowboys defense. I think that's a solid lineup. I really like Devontae Smith this week. A.J. Brown, I just don't know if he's fully healthy, That's the only worrisome thing, but I'll stop sharing my screen now. And now let's go around the league, rapid fire, some starts, some fades. So first game, Jacksonville at Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati gets 2-0 this week. And I think a start is Brenton Strange, fade Bashal Tutin. I think Bashal Tutin is a good stash candidate for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Role's just not big enough yet. Travis Etienne should see the bulk of the touches, although we should see Bashal Tutin involved, I think, a little more in week 2. So definitely stash Bashal Tutin if he's out there in 12-man leagues. 10-man leagues, I think he's still worth a stash. 8-man leagues, I'm not sure you need to stash the guy yet. 8-man leagues can get pretty thin or pretty deep. So Bashal Tutin is kind of a stash and hold. So shallower leagues probably don't need to do that quite yet. New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is favored by 5.5 points. Over under is 44.5. Start George Pickens, fade Tyrone Tracy. Like I was talking about earlier, you could see Cam Scatterboo get ramped up a little bit this week, which would be good for Scatterboo owners. Definitely hold on to Scatterboo. Scatterboo probably is not worth the start this week. We aren't sure how many touches he's going to get, but I'm fading Tyrone Tracy. Next game up, Chicago at Detroit. Detroit is favored by 6.5 points. Over under is 46.5. Start Amon-Ra. I know he got off to a bad start last week, but fire him up this week. No worries. He should get going this week. Fade DeAndre Swift. The Lions run defense tried to shut down Josh Jacobs last week. Josh Jacobs still got into the end zone, and I just don't see DeAndre Swift on the same level as Josh Jacobs. So I'm trying to fade DeAndre Swift this week if you can. And then Los Angeles Rams at the Tennessee Titans. The Rams are favored by 5.5. Over under is 41.5. I think the Rams defense is a great play. I would start Devontae Adams. I know he got off to a slow start last week, but I think he gets back on track here. Tony Pollard, I think also should get the bulk of the volume in the run pass game. I'm also fading Cam Ward this week. I don't think you should start him. One of my opponents is actually starting Cam Ward, and I don't know why. We're in a 1 QB league, but he waited so long that he just got Cam Ward as QB1, and he's kind of stuck with him. So yikes for that guy. But fade Cam Ward this week. I just think this Rams defense is too tough. We saw CJ Stroud struggle a little bit last week. So I think the Rams win this one. The Patriots at the Dolphins. Miami's favored by 1.5. Over unders 42.5. I think you start Travion Henderson, fade to Mario Douglas. It is booty season. in New England. And I think Diggs gets a little more involved this week. I don't know if they were trying to ramp him up a little bit just because of his injury last year, but he didn't get a lot of playing time. I think he gets ramped up a little more in the playing time that he got. He saw a lot of targets. So, yeah, fade Demario Douglas. I was hoping he'd be a little more involved. He only got 2 targets. I think he caught a touchdown though, so that was good, but didn't really do much besides that. Next up, San Francisco at New Orleans, and then I'm going to get to some more questions. Start Ricky Pearsall, fade Alvin Kamara. The San Francisco 49ers are going to have Mac Jones at quarterback this week. They're favored by 2.5. Over under is 40.5. I'm not sure if that line moved since they made the announcement that Mac Jones is officially the quarterback, but that is the over under and the line favoring San Francisco at New Orleans. Um, go Fields, Johnny boy. Go Fields. ETN Hampton Tet pick 2. Go ETN and Tet. I'm a little worried about Najee getting more involved. Should I start Mike Evans or Hollywood? You got to go Mike Evans, I think. They got to get Mike Evans. Cringe. You might have messed up. I like Tucker Kraft a lot. I like him a lot. See if you can get him back. I don't know how, but yeah, I really like Tucker Kraft. J.K. Dobbins or Kenneth Walker. Lonnie, I'm the high guy on Kenneth Walker, so I'm going to say Kenneth Walker. Should I do Pickens, Dobbins, Coleman for flex? Go Pickens, Worm. Hollywood, Igbuka, Pearsall to the start. Oh, I think I answered that one. I would go Igbuka. Herbert or May? Herbert. Start Tetaroa McMillan, Johnny boy. Tetaroa McMillan. He's going to get peppered with targets. Breece Hall or Javonte Williams. Surge, go Breece Hall. Should you give up Hampton and Laporta for Sutton, Breece, and Pitts? If you need a wide receiver, it depends. Liam, do you have anyone else at tight end? Like Laporta is a great tight end, but what other tight ends are out there? Could you add a Harold Fannin? Could you try and get a Tucker Kraft? Could you I really like Tucker Kraft, man. Tucker Kraft. Traded Igbuka and Krosky for Terry McLaurin and Chuba Hubbard. You better hope Terry McLaurin gets on track. Igbuka was one of. Oh, Liam, you have Strange. If you really need a wide receiver, then do it. But it depends on how deep you are at wide receiver. Phoenix, I would not have traded Igbuka, and Krosky Merritt is going to go into an RB2 role, like fantasy wise, because Eckler's probably out for the year. Terry McLaurin and Chuba Hubbard. I like Chuba Hubbard, but Terry McLaurin just needs to get back on track. DJ Moore or Hollywood. DJ Moore, give me DJ Moore, and then give me Tet over Hollywood as well. Bo Nix or Drake May. Give me Drake May. Give me Drake May. All right, guys, let's finish these up real quick. Buffalo at the Jets. Buffalo -6.5. Over under is 46.5. Start Garrett Wilson, fade Dalton Kincaid. Seattle at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is favored by 2.5. Over under is 39.5. As we saw last week, Pittsburgh had the lowest over under, and their total was one of the highest on the week. Start DK Metcalf. And then Kenneth Walker, I think, is a sleeper for me. If you can have a better option, definitely do that. And then I would fade Cooper Kupp. I'd fade Cooper Kupp in Seattle. Cleveland at Baltimore. Baltimore is favored by 11.5. Over under is 44.5. Start Jerry Jeudy. Fade Zay Flowers. I think they're going to get the run game going. I don't know how involved this pass game is going to be for Zay Flowers. He was very, very good last week, but he had like a 40 to 50% target share, and I just don't see that happening week to week. Sell high on Zay Flowers if you can. If I'm wrong about this, I'll put my hand up, but I just was not a huge fan of him coming into the season because of his lack of touchdowns. Now, granted, he scored like 2 touchdowns last week, or 1 or 2 touchdowns. Um, but fade Zay Flowers in this matchup. I just don't think he's going to be as involved. I think he's going to be Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and maybe Mark Andrews. I'd be fine with fading Mark Andrews and then starting Zay Flowers if you have to. Denver at Indianapolis. Denver is favored by 1.5. Over under is 42.5. I would start RJ Harvey in a flex role. And I'm fading Michael Pittman, like I talked about earlier. Pat Surtain Island. I'm worried about that. Carolina at Arizona. Arizona is favored by 6.5. Over under is 43.5. Start Chuba Hubbard, fade Marvin Harrison Jr. I talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier. I'm worried about him and JC Horn Island over there. Definitely fade MHJ. And then Philadelphia at Kansas City, Super Bowl rematch. Philadelphia is favored by -1.5. Over under is 46.5. I would start Devontae Smith and fade Isaiah Pacheco. And then Atlanta at Minnesota, the Sunday night game, I believe. Minnesota -3.5. Over under is 44.5. Start Jordan Mason, fade Michael Penix Jr. Depends really on if I'm not starting Penix in a 1 QB league, maybe a 2 QB league if he does have Drake London and Darnell Mooney, but it's risky. I'm fading him this week. Tampa Bay at Houston. Houston -2.5. Over unders 42.5. Start Emeka Egbuka. Fade Nick Chubb in this matchup. That is the first Monday night game. Second Monday night game, the last one on the slate. Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Los Angeles Chargers are favored -3.5. Over under is 46.5. I'm starting Jacoby Myers and I'm fading Omari and Hampton this week. I'm a little worried that Najee Harris gets more involved this week. Now, if Najee Harris is limited in practice or they talk about limiting his snaps this week, I'm fine with starting Hampton as an RB2 flex play. But if you have better options, definitely go that route. I know most people drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round, and I'm having that same problem with Kenneth Walker right now. And I'm just starting Kenneth Walker because I have to. I used a high draft pick on him. I have confidence in the player. If you have confidence in the player, fire them up. But it is worrisome with Kenneth Walker. With Amari Hampton, luckily saw a ton of volume, so there's nothing really to worry about. I just hope they get a little more efficient on the ground game against the Raiders this week. It just really depends on if Najee Harris cuts into Omari Hampton's role. All right, guys, I'm going to answer some more listener questions. Then we're going to wrap it up, and then we'll break down week 3 next week on the BA Sports Podcast. Let's answer some questions really quick. Michael Penix or Bo Nix? I'd go Nix. Trade Diggs for Jacoby. Andrew, if you can pull that off, I think you do. Oh gosh, Cole, I haven't even looked that far ahead to see who's playing next week and Thursday night. Swift or Pollard at RB2, Pearsall or DJ Moore at flex. Go. Let me see here. Let me look at my rankings. Go Pearsall. Go Pearsall. But I'm actually, yeah. Go Pearsall. DJ Moore worries me a little bit this week. Swift or Pollard at RB. Go Pollard. I think Pollard's going to get a lot of volume. I'm worried about that Detroit run game defense. So I think Swift is kind of in trouble. I would go Tony Pollard. Even though the Rams run defense is good, I still think Pollard's going to get a lot of volume. Zach Charbonnet, Rome Odunze, Jalen Warren, Rome Odunze, Jacob. What receiver would be a good trade for Jonathan Taylor? Marvin Harrison Jr. plus maybe a low-end running back. See if you can pull that off. Jay Johnson. Juwan Johnson or Otten? I would go Juwan Johnson. Swift, Pollard. I already answered that. If you feel more confident in DJ Moore, I'm fine with DJ Moore. I think, Mac Jones helped Brian Thomas Jr. last year do way better at the end of the year. Mike Evans, Drake London, Hollywood Brown, Jacoby Myers. Start 3. Drake London, Jacoby Myers, and Mike Evans. Quinshon Judkins or Samson at flex, I'm guessing crazy. PPR leagues, I go Samson. Tyreek Hill, Hollywood Brown, or Travis Hunter. Tyreek Hill, Dylan. All right, guys. Any more questions? I'm about to end the live on the podcast, and I'll stay live on TikTok. Let's go with this last question from Royce on the podcast. Keon Coleman and Dylan Sampson for Jordan Mason and Travis Hunter. I like that trade, Royce. I would pull the trigger. I like that trade. Even though I think Keon Coleman could break out this year, Travis Hunter could also break out this year, and I like Jordan Mason more than Dylan Sampson. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in live on TikTok, live on X, and live on YouTube. Please tune in next Thursday for the BA Sports Podcast, week 3. Hit that follow button, hit that subscribe, give us a rating on any podcast platform, wherever you find podcasts, BA Sports Podcast. 5 stars, leave a rating, leave a comment. I'll read your comments if you leave a fantasy question. Maybe it's a trade, maybe it's an ad drop, maybe it's even a lineup decision for next week. Rate us 5 stars and leave a comment, and I'll try and read those off next week. And we'll be teasing week 3. Thank you guys for tuning in. We went over start, sit, sleepers, and busts. We also went over some daily fantasy. Then we did a rapid fire every game, start and a fade for every game. And then you guys can find all my rankings at BA Sports Podcast. Just search BA Sports Podcast mailerpage.io, and you will be taken to the BA Sports Podcast website where you can see all my rankings and find all my Fantasy Pros articles and podcast episodes. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. Hopefully you get the win in your fantasy matchup.